Good morning, everybody, from a not so warm and sunny Cape Town. Morning, Hein.
Morning, Michelle. Ach, he's beautiful, man. Don't tell them stuff that might make them upset or disappointed in Cape Town. But
No, they're all telling me how beautiful it is in Zululand and sunny and warm, and they're just making us jealous here.
oh, so nice to be back with you guys, Michelle. Flip it, man.
Nice to have you back, Hein. I'm going to hand it straight over to you and
Thank you
to
so
let you get
much.
on with it.
Can you see the screen there, Michelle? Are you happy with that? Beautiful. Okay, so good morning, everyone. As you all know, I'm Hein Daisel. I'm from STBB Attorneys. I'm based at the Somerset West branch. And today, this morning, what we're going to have a look at, very often we get questions from prospective purchasers or clients to say, oh, what should we do? Should we buy this property in a trust or a company or a close corporation? It's very difficult to give clients advice regarding that. So what we're going to have a look at this morning is what little points should we consider, should we tell them about, should they think about when they make their decision whether to buy the property in a company or trust or whatever. So buying property in South Africa in a legal entity obviously have some legal implications. And that's what we're going to have a look at, because that will play a role in a person determining or deciding whether or not he wants to purchase it in a company or a trust or whatever. So apart from legal consequences, there are certain steps that you also need to take that are crucial when you purchase a property in a company or a trust, etc. We're going to have a look at nominations. And in South African law, we've got two types of entities or persons. We've got natural persons like you and me buying it in the name of Hein Daisel. And then there are also juristic people or persons. That is relates to the companies or close corporations or trusts. And we're going to get to close corporations as well. But that is the natural people are people that buying property in their personal capacity, and juristic people are the legal entities that they purchase the property into. And that is the question that we get. Should we purchase this property as an individual, or should I buy this in the name of a company or a close corporation or a trust? Those are pretty much your options available. Yes, since 2011, no new close corporations can be registered, but all close corporations that are already in existence as at 2011 can still continue as per usual. So close corporations are still applicable. Yes, we cannot register new ones, but existing close corporations can still continue. So if we have a look at, there are certain factors to consider, and this is what we're going to discuss and see what impact these considerations will have on you as an individual to decide whether or not you want to buy it in a company or a trust or whatever. So first of all, there's corporate governance. Those are the rules and regulations set out by the Companies Act, by the Trust Control Act, etc., etc. So that legislation requires, for example, a company to do annual financial statements, to submit it not only to SARS but to CIPC as well, for them to keep the company registered. So it can be quite costly if you need an accountant appointed when you purchase a property in a company. You'll have to pay fees for that. Personal liability and protection from creditors, that's one of the most important decisions I think that a person needs to make, is that am I liable to creditors in my personal capacity? Did I sign suretyship for my company, personal suretyship? So if I sign suretyship for Diesel Motors, a second-hand car dealership in Voortrekker Road. I'm selling cars, and I personally, Diesel, I signed a surety ship for Diesel cars or whatever in Voortrekker Road. Then, and I'm concerned about that, then I might think about purchasing the property in the name of a trust that is separate from my personal liability towards creditors for companies or for my personal liability. I want to hide the property away in a trust. Then we're going to have a look at transfer duty and VAT. How does that influence my decision? Capital gains tax is a big decision, or it's a big factor that plays a role when you purchase a property in a company or closed corporation or trust. Capital gains tax is a lot more. And estate duty, we're going to have a look at that. If the company, if the company or the trust owns the property, how does that affect the state duty? For if in my personal capacity, so there are benefits over there. So if we have a look, corporate governance, legal authority, is the entity entitled to transact? And for that, we go and have a look at the memorandum of incorporation of the company. We're going to have a look at the trust deed to see whether or not the trust can purchase a property. Are you authorized to do that? Do you have the letter of authority by the master's office, for example, if you've got a trust, to act on behalf of the trust? Do you have the necessary authorization? Are the resolutions in place? Can the transaction be condoned? So if you buy a property or sell a property out of a company or into a company, you need certain resolutions. The directors of the company must sign a resolution that the company has decided to purchase the property. Yes, the company can condone. If I purchase a motor vehicle on behalf of Diesel second-hand car dealership, the company can condone that transaction that Hein did, but not in the case of a trust. The trust must be formed. The trust resolutions must be in place before you buy or sell, authorizing a specific person to sign or to conclude that agreement on behalf of the trust. You can't nominate, for example, a trust to be formed. The trust must be in place. So if a purchaser comes to you and says, oh, I would like to purchase this property, but I would like to purchase it in the name of my family trust, the Hein Diesel Family Trust, that I'm busy setting up. My accountants are busy creating the trust. There's no deal. For a trust, the trust must be formed. The letters of authority from the master's office must be in place. You cannot condone something. I cannot sign an offer to purchase a property on behalf of the Hein Diesel Trust, which is to be formed. That contract is null and void. It's not worth the paper that it's written on. It's null and void. You might as well throw it in the bin. For a trust, the Trust Control Act says that the master's letters of authority must be there. Otherwise, the trust has got no legal right to transact. As opposed to a company or a closed corporation. If I purchase the property in the name of a company to be formed that's not in place as yet, I can do that. The company can condone it. So in the offer to purchase, you will say that Hein Diesel is purchasing this on behalf of a company to be formed. The company must be formed within 30 days, whatever time period your seller obviously will allow your purchaser. 30 days is more than enough. I recently did a private offer to purchase where the purchaser wanted to buy it in a company to be formed. The company was formed within 4 days. Done. So it's very quick, simple, and easy. The accountants can do it very quickly. But let's say worst case scenario in our example. Let's say I'm buying it on behalf of a company to be formed. The contract will then say to be formed within 30 days. When the company is formed within 30 days, the directors of the company will then condone my action and say, we, as the company, we are the directors of this company, which has been duly formed now. We condone, agree, and confirm that we are bound now and we accept the nomination um, of that offer to purchase, and we will continue with that offer to purchase. Very often, the offer to purchase will say that if the company is not formed within that 30-day period, then Hein Duisel, in his personal capacity, will then be the purchaser and will be obliged to comply with the terms and conditions of the agreement. So then Hein Duisel must not buy the property in his personal capacity. If he couldn't manage to create or register the company within 30 days, dan was hy sleg, hy was slap, then he will buy the property in his personal capacity. So that's the type of wording that you will get in the offer to purchase. So yes, you can buy on behalf of a company that is to be formed, that is not in existence as yet. Yes, you can do that. But that's not the case with the trust. The trust must be in existence. The letters of authority must be there. Otherwise, no transaction can take place in respect of that trust that is not yet formed. It's impossible. Can't do that. So yes, you can condone the transaction if it's a company or a close corporation that you are taking over. So again, we said that no new close corporations can register. We understand that, no problem. We're not registering a new close corporation, but we might want to buy the name from somebody and change the members' interest. So Hein and Michelle are now the members of this CC. And yes, then the CC can condone that offer to purchase that Hein signed, because Hein and Michelle are the members of the CC and they've agreed to condone and that offer to purchase that Hein signed and to purchase it in the name of the CC. If you have a look, VAT or transfer duty. Now, if you have a look personally, in my personal capacity, what a bargain. The same will apply for a company and close corporation. In the olden days, many, many years ago, you won't believe it, but as soon as you bought a property in the name of a trust, a company, or a close corporation, you paid effective transfer duty of 10% of the purchase price. So there was no exemption. Whether you bought a property for R1 or R1,000,000 or 10 million rand, you paid 10% as a company, close corporation or trust, 10% transfer duty to SARS. That has changed. So there's no more 10%. If you're a company, close corporation, trust, or private individual, we all pay the same transfer duty. The first 1.1 million rand is exempt, etc., and then the table goes on. But that might play a role on you if you are purchasing the property in the name of the company. And that is a consideration that you might have to look at. So, for example, when is VAT applicable? Well, VAT is applicable to all of us, private individuals, companies, if the seller is registered for VAT. And always remember that it's the seller. So if you go to Builders Warehouse or you go to Pick n Pay to buy bread and milk and eggs and whatever, you pay VAT on that purchases of yours, because Pick n Pay, or if you go and buy cement and bricks or a screwdriver or a drill at Builders Warehouse, you pay VAT on that because Builders Warehouse, Pick n Pay, whoever is selling that product to you is registered for VAT. That is why you have to pay VAT when you go buy stuff from Builders or Pick n Pay or the Spa or whatever. Similarly, if your seller is VAT registered and it forms part of his VATable enterprise, then VAT is applicable. Then you as the purchaser will have to pay VAT for the purchase of that property. So in the scenario where your seller is a VAT vendor and you as the purchaser must pay VAT now on that purchase price, you might have to now consider, don't I rather want to buy this in a company or closed corporation and register the company for VAT so that I can claim that VAT back from SARS, which I'm entitled to do if I'm VAT registered. So you might want to then consider purchasing it in the name of a company where you can claim the VAT back. Obviously, if your seller is VAT registered, and if you've got an entity that is VAT registered, hey, no, but hang on, I've got a company that is VAT registered. The nice thing about that is that if that seller is selling that property as a going concern and it is an income earning activity, then the transaction will be zero VAT rated. So no VAT will be payable. And obviously, there's no transfer duty payable because it's either transfer duty or VAT that is payable, never both. So, what is a going concern? Well, if I've got commercial property, I've got a building in Salt River, it's got 4 shops, so, and I'm renting those shops out to whoever, to different people, different whatever reason. That is an income earning activity. I've got lease agreements in respect of that building and in respect of rental income. Or if I've got a guest house, I've got the Hein Duisel Guest House Pty Limited. I'll run it as a guest house and I want to sell the building and I'll sell everything as a going concern, then it will be zero VAT rated. Now, a lot of people think, oh, what a bargain. If it's an income earning activity, going concern, zero VAT rated, so I don't pay anything. Well, it's just a way for SARS, because if you're, as the seller, is VAT registered, you have to charge VAT. Okay, so your purchaser will then pay the VAT and that will be paid over to SARS. But if your purchaser is now registered for VAT as well, let's say it's not a going concern, let's say it's not an income earning activity, you as the purchaser will have to pay VAT on the purchase price because your seller is VAT registered. The seller will pay that VAT over to SARS. But you as the purchaser, you're also VAT registered. What you can do is you can then claim that VAT back from SARS after the transaction. You can say, hey, I want my VAT back, please. I'm VAT registered. I'm a VAT vendor as well as a purchaser. So I can claim that VAT back from SARS, no problem. But SARS is saying, if this property is sold as a going concern, you as the purchaser, you're just going to take over the business and carry on with the lease agreements and what, then we're going to zero VAT rate it if you are also VAT registered, because as opposed to the seller having to pay the VAT over, you're going to, as the purchaser, you're going to claim it back again. It's just too much admin. No. Then we zero VAT rated and you just carry on with the business as per usual. So it's not a saving as such. It's just for admin purposes for SARS. It's just easier because you as the purchaser, if it wasn't sold as a going concern, the VAT will be paid over to SARS, and you as the purchaser who is VAT registered will then just claim the VAT back from SARS. So it's fine. You can do that as well. Protection from creditors. Now, this is a very important factor to consider. And I'll tell you a little story about that, because you want protection. If you are buying your family home where you're going to stay with your kids and your wife and whatever, but you are exposed personally, Hein Duisel, you have signed surety ships for your brother and for your other business that you've got, the car dealership, used to personal surety ship for those loans, etc. So I just consider now, try and get this property out of your personal name. Get it out of Hein Duisel. Rather put it in a family trust, so that if a creditor comes to you, Hein Duisel, for sureties, whatever that you signed in respect of your car business or personally, whatever, then the trust is separate. No one can touch the property that is in the trust because it is a separate legal entity from Hein Duisel, who's personally liable towards creditors out there where Hein Duisel signed surety ships, etc. So that's an important factor to consider. If you've got a lot of liability and exposure to creditors in my personal capacity as Hein Duisel, then I'd rather buy this property in the name of a trust. because those creditors that I am liable for to pay and that can come after me personally cannot touch the property that is in the name of my family trust. That's a separate legal entity altogether. So that is a big factor to consider, and for you to decide to purchase the property in the name of a trust. The issue with that is, if I do buy it in the name of a trust or a company or a close corporation, the negative thing about that is that capital gains tax will have a big influence on that property when I sell that property. Because if I bought the property in my personal name, then if I sell that property again, the first and it's my primary residence, the first 2 million rands worth of profits are exempt from any I don't have to pay any capital gains tax on the first 2 million rands worth of profits. And even if it's not my primary residence, if it's my family home in Hermanus, 40% of my profits will then be included in my taxable income. Whereas a company or that Heindeisel family trust that I bought the house in, or a close corporation, whatever I used to purchase the property in order to get away from me personally being liable towards creditors, etc. Unfortunately, if it's the company, trust, or close corporation, well, there's no 2 million rand exemption on the profits that you are making there, as opposed to when it was in your personal capacity. So there's no exemption. You're going to pay tax on each and every cent. And in fact, we're going to include 80% of your profits. When you sell that property out of the trust, company, or close corporation, we're going to include 80% of your profits in the taxable income of the company, close corporation, or trust, not 40% when it's in your personal capacity. So that's the negative side of it. The capital gains tax. So, Mr. Purchaser, yes, it's fantastic to put it in the name of your trust because, yes, you've got a lot of creditors, you sign suretyships, absolutely, no problem. But just remember, there's no 2 million rand exemption, and 80% of those profits will then be included in the taxable income. So you're going to be taxed on 80% of your profits as opposed to 40%. So that's the plus and the negative side when you make that decision to buy it in the personal name or in a company, trust, or close corporation. So buying property as an individual, the advantage is there are few formalities. You can decide what you want to do with your property. Are you going to let it out? Do you want to sell it? Do you want it to use it as a holiday residence? If it's in the name of the company, close corporation, or trust, the directors of the company, the members of the close corporation, the trustees of the trust, they all need to decide and confirm and come to an agreement as to what the property can be used for, what it must be used for. They must sign resolutions. There might have to be accountants involved to do annual financial returns, etc. That can be quite costly. So if it's in your private name, there are no such formalities. The buck stops with you. You decide what to do with the property, to rent it out, to lease it, to sell it, whatever you want to do. Primary residence exemption as well. If it's in my personal capacity, the benefit that I've got is that the first 2 million rands worth of profits are exempt. And even if it's not my primary residence, that's fine, because I'm only going to pay tax on 40% of my profits, as opposed to 80% of my profits if it is in the name of a company or a close corporation. There's no complicated meetings and resolutions that needs to be taken. You decide and you carry on with your decision in your personal capacity. Disadvantages: risk of exposure, the risk of exposure to those creditors that we spoke about. Yes, so if I want to try and get away from creditors that can hold me personally liable, then yes, I understand that I'm going to be hit hard with capital gains tax. I understand that. But the benefit for me to have a house and a home for my wife and my kids and whatever, it's better. I'd rather take that risk if I decide to sell that property one day. you know what? At least I've had the peace of mind that my house is safe. No one can take that away from me if the creditors come after me. Upon the death, the estate duty will be increased. So if that property is in my personal capacity, it will obviously form part of my estate, my deceased estate. So there are taxes, there are estate duties, there are executive fees that charge 3.5% plus VAT on the value of your estate. So if I keep it in my personal name, the value of my estate will increase and there will be more fees payable when I pass away. Whereas if the property is in the name of the trust or the company, it does not form part of my personal, the Hindasel estate. So I won't be taxed that much, and the executors won't charge me 3.5% plus VAT on the gross value of my estate, etc., etc. So those are the factors, and it's very difficult. I went to see clients last month, and they are purchasing the property in the name of the family trust. And I said to them, but can I ask you, why are you buying this property in a trust? Is this going to be your residence? Yeah. We're going to stay with our kids and whatever. Absolutely. And I said to them, but can I ask, why did you make the decision? Why did you decide to purchase the property in the name of the trust? Do you know about capital gains tax and you're going to be hit hard? Because if it's in your personal capacity and it's going to be your primary residence, your first 2 million rands worth of profits are exempt. You don't have to pay tax on that. They said, no, don't worry. We are financial advisors. And we've also got other companies where we stood suretyship, etc. So you don't have to tell us anything about capital gains tax, etc., etc., etc. We've decided to purchase this property in the name of our family trust because that is now completely separate from our other companies that we've got where we stood suretyships and where we've got creditors and etc. So that is the reason why we are purchasing it in the name of the trust. We understand that we are going to get hit with capital gains tax when we sell that property, which is our primary residence. We understand that, but it just gives us the peace of mind to know that our family home, where we want to raise our kids, can never be touched by creditors out there that are coming after us personally. So that was their reason for buying it in the family trust. And those are the factors that the people will have to make. You as a purchaser will have to decide, your factors. You have to have a look at what is your short-term, medium, and long-term goals. Is that going to be a family home, or are you just buying this property as an investment to swing it? You're just going to repair it and swing it again. Then you might have to say, well, then I'm going to buy it in my personal home. I'm not going to have it for that long. I just want to do renovations. Yes, it's not my personal home, but I will only be taxed on 40% of my profits, not 80% as opposed to company. Use of the property. Will it be your primary private home? Will it be your residence? Will it be office space? Will it be for business? Will it be to let out? Risk of exposure. Do you have creditors that will come after you? Have you signed suretyships for anything where your personal assets, the assets that are in Hindassel's name, is at risk of being attached by creditors? So that is why you might need to put your assets, like a property that you're buying, put that asset in a trust that is separate from your personal liability. So you have to have a look at the personal circumstances. There's no easy way to tell a person, no, buy the property in the name of a company or a trust. No, it's not that easy. You need to have a look at your personal circumstances, but these are little factors that we just wanted to mention to point out to prospective purchasers, to say, hey, yes, to buy in a trust is fantastic because you've got security from creditors. Absolutely. But did you know that there's no 2 million rand exemption? You're going to get hit hard when you sell the property with capital gains tax, because you're going to pay on 80% of your profits, you're going to be taxed, as opposed to 40% if you're a private individual. Did you know? Yes, you're going to benefit from estate duty to buy it in the name of a trust or a company as opposed to your personal name. But then again, you're going to save money on capital gains tax when you sell the property. So all these factors play a role for you as the purchaser to make up your mind whether or not to buy it in a to entity or not to entity. That depends on your personal perspective, but these are little factors that play a role, and they might have to be reminded as to what factors will play a role. It will not form part of your estate, but you will pay a hell of a lot of capital gains tax. There are formalities, etc., etc. So those are the factors that each and every purchaser must decide what is the best fit in his scenario. Does he have a lot of creditors, etc.? Then you know what, purchased in a trust, yes, you're going to get hit hard with capital gains tax, but it doesn't form part of your personal estate on your death, so there's less duties that you pay. So what you gain on what you lose on the swings, you gain on the roundabouts. But that each person will have to make that decision for him and herself. Michelle, and that is it. I'm so glad I could make it this morning and talk to you and get the laptop working, etc., etc. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hein. Thank you for your input. Always appreciated.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm out of here. Good luck with your talk. Keep well, guys.